Hi there, Salve, I'm Mrs. Weiss. Welcome to Latin Storytime. Today I'm going to tell you the story of the golden goose. Let me introduce you to the Latin words I'll be using. Here is senex. Senex may remind you of your grandfather. In today's story, our main character will meet a senem, not only wise, but also has some special gifts that he'll use to help our main character. Here is arbor. Arbores fill a forest. You may have some arbores around your home. Then here is panis. You're probably very familiar with panis. Maybe you have it for breakfast with butter on it, or it makes up your sandwich at lunchtime. Another food in today's story is vinum. Vinum is made from the juice of grapes. You're probably not old enough to have it yet, but vinum is served with dinner or at special occasions, and certain churches will use it as part of their communion. Then finally we have anser. You'll see anseres gathered around lakes or ponds, and they'll fly in a V, and anser will make a honking sound to get the attention of other ansares. Now we're ready to hear the story of the golden anser. There was a man who had 3 sons, the youngest of whom was called the simpleton, and was despised, laughed at, and neglected on every occasion. It happened one day that the eldest son wished to go into the forest to cut down arbores, and before he went, his mother gave him some delicious panem and vinum, that he might not suffer from hunger or thirst. When he came into the forest, senex met him, who wished him good day and said, "Give me a bit of panem out of your pocket, and let me drink some vinum. I am so hungry and thirsty." But the youth answered, "Give you my panem and my vinum? I haven't got any. Be off with you." And leaving senem standing there, he went off. Then he began to fell an arborem, but he had not been at it long before he made a wrong stroke, and the hatchet hit him in the arm, so that he was obliged to go home and get it bound up. That was what came of his meeting with Sene. Afterwards, the second son went into the wood, and the mother gave to him, as to the eldest, panem and vinum. Senex met him also, and begged for a little panem and vinum. But the second son spoke out plainly, saying, "What I give you, I lose myself, so be off with you." And leaving Senem standing there, the second son went off. The punishment followed. As he was chopping away at arborem, he hit himself in the leg so severely that he had to be carried home. Then it was the simpleton's turn to go off and try. The mother gave him panem, but it was only made with water and baked in the ashes, and with it some sour vinum. When he came into the forest, senex met him and greeted him, saying, "Give me some panem and a little vinum. I am so hungry and thirsty." And the simpleton answered, "I have only flour and water panem and sour vinum, but if that is good enough for you, let us sit down together and eat." Then they sat down, and as the simpleton took out his panem, it became a rich, beautiful loaf, and his sour vinum became good. Then they ate and drank, and afterwards senex said, "As you have such a kind heart, and share what you have so willingly, I will bestow good luck upon you. Yonder stands an old arbor. Cut it down, and at its root you will find something." And thereupon senex took his departure. The simpleton went there and hewed away at arborem, and when it fell, he saw sitting among the roots anserem with feathers of pure gold. He lifted it out and took it with him to an inn where he intended to stay the night. The landlord had 3 daughters, who when they saw anserem were curious to know what wonderful kind of bird it was, and longed for one of its golden feathers. So, when the simpleton was gone out, the eldest daughter seized anserem by its wing, but there her finger and hand stuck fast. Soon after came the second daughter with the same idea of plucking out one of the golden feathers from ansere. But scarcely had she touched her sister, then she also stuck fast. Lastly Came the third with the same intentions, but the others screamed out, "Stay away, stay away!" But she did not see why she should stay away, and when she reached her sisters, there she stuck too. And so they had to stay all night. The next morning, the simpleton took Ansarum under his arm and went away, unmindful of the three girls that hung on to it. The three had to run behind him and Ansarum, left and right, wherever his legs carried him. In the midst of the field, they met the parson, who, when he saw the procession, said, "Shame on you girls running after a young fellow through the fields like this." And forthwith he seized hold of the youngest by the hand to drag her away. But hardly had he touched her when he too was stuck fast. As the five tramped on, one after another, two peasants came up from the fields, and the parson cried out to them and begged them to come and set him free. But no sooner had they touched the parson than they too were stuck, and now there were 6 following the simpleton and Ansarum. By and by they came to a town where a king reigned who had an only daughter who was so serious that no one could make her laugh. Therefore, the king had said that whoever should make her laugh should have her in marriage. The simpleton, when he heard this, went with Ansarum and his hangers-on into the presence of the king's daughter. And as soon as she saw the procession, she burst out laughing and seemed as if she could never stop. And so the simpleton earned the right to have her as his bride. But the king did not like him as a son-in-law and made all kinds of objections, and said the simpleton must first bring a man who could drink up a whole cellar full with wino. The simpleton thought that Senem would be able to help him, and so he went out into the forest, and there, on the very spot where he felled Arborea, he saw Senem sitting with a very sad countenance. The simpleton asked him what was the matter, and he answered, "I have a great thirst which I cannot quench." Then the simpleton said, "I can help you. Only come with me and you shall have enough." He took him straight to the king's cellar, and the man sat himself down before the big vats and drank, and before a day was over he had drunk up all the wino. The simpleton again asked for his bride. The king was annoyed, and so he made new conditions. He wanted him to produce a man who could eat up a panicule mountain. The simpleton did not hesitate long, but ran quickly off to the forest, and there in the same place sat Senex again, making a very piteous face and saying, "My stomach feels quite empty." The simpleton was quite glad of this and said, "Get up quickly and come along with me, and you shall have enough to eat." He led him straight to the king's courtyard, where all the grain in the kingdom had been collected and baked to form a panicule mountain. Senex settled himself down before it and hastened to eat, and in one day the whole mountain had disappeared. Then the simpleton asked for his bride the 3rd time. The king, however, found one more excuse and said he must have a ship that should be able to sail on land or on water. "So soon," said he, "as you come sailing along with it, you shall have my daughter for your wife." The simpleton went straight to the forest, and there sat Senex again, and he said, "I have eaten panem for you, and I have drunk winum for you. I will also give you the ship, and all because you were kind to me at the first." Then he gave him the ship that could sail on land and on water, and when the king saw it, he knew he could no longer withhold his daughter. The marriage took place immediately, and at the death of the king, the simpleton possessed his kingdom, and lived long and happily with his wife. The end. Thanks for joining me today for Latin Storytime. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey parents, I want to help your kids keep learning Latin beyond our storytime together. Visit latinstorytime.com/signup for free access to each of my parents' guides, where I give you a list of the new words your child learned today and some tips to help you practice those words naturally in your daily life. And remember to click the YouTube subscribe button so you catch each new episode. Thanks for watching, and I hope your family enjoys your Latin learning together.